All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. Let me make sure. All right, so guys, welcome. For everyone out there, I don't know who's on Facebook and not, but thanks for checking in tonight. We got two experts on junior golf. Jeff is a longtime friend of mine. We've, what, Jeff, 34 years now we've known each other?
I'm only 29, so it couldn't possibly be that long.
Can't be that long.
I have to be close.
Yeah. So, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and just give a brief introduction to yourself?
We are at the, when I say we, my wife Stacy and I, we are at the FisherBryan Golf Academy at Longo Golf Club in Mesa, Arizona. This is our 11th year there. I would say probably 75% of what we do is junior golf stuff. So we try to do it everything from 6 years old all the way up to sending them off to college on scholarship. So keep pretty busy doing that stuff.
And you've sent a lot of kids to college, haven't you?
Yeah, we, part of that was, having been at IJGA, for a few years, and that's all we did. But, we've sent close to 100 in the last, 10 years here. That was our focus for a long time. And now we do, probably equal parts that and developmental programs, but it's always a fun thing to be able to help a kid get his college paid for or her college paid for through golf.
Right. And I think, and your daughter's going to go play at UNLV, correct?
Sydney's she's a junior, so she's 2021. So she's junior in high school right now, but she's going to go play for Coach Amy at UNLV in 18 months.
Terrific. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then I want to introduce Christopher Smeal. Chris is out in California. Known Chris for a number of years. He runs a very large junior golf tournament out there. Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, hi, everybody. I started Future Champions Golf in 2004, mostly just doing junior golf clinics and camps, and pretty successful for a few years. And then in 2007, we started a golf tour for kids that's grown to, we do over 100 events a year. We got a full staff that really operates that. And I teach full-time at Stadium Golf Center in San Diego. Most of my students are juniors or college players or players that are trying to get good. So it's been really good, really fun, and I look forward to getting back at it.
You've got a huge program there, don't you?
Yeah, it's pretty big. We did about 9,000 kids last year for tournament play.
Oh, that's it, just 9,000.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So if you're out there listening on Facebook or here on Zoom, feel free to type in a question if you have any questions in the chat box or the comment box, and we'll try to answer any questions that you have. I'm going to start off with one right away, and actually Aiden's on the Zoom call here, guys. So Aiden committed to play at St. Edward's out in Texas. And we were just discussing that, they canceled not only golf, but a couple of other sports. And he's a 2020 kid, so he's kind of in a tough spot. So, and with all the changes that are going on with the NCAA rules, I saw some new guidelines come out today and stuff. What kind of advice, Chris, I'll start with you. What kind of advice do you have for seniors, or even juniors for that matter, who have committed to colleges, and their teams or the school that they're going to go to? Some schools may close down. I heard Boston College may close down for the year. So yeah. What advice do you have for kids that are in that situation at this point? 2020 kids, they're really, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, I think it's a tough year for everybody, and I think there's so much unknown. Especially right now because of where the virus is, and governors opening up certain parts of the country, and I don't think any of us know what's really going to happen. But I think being active and figuring out what the next steps are. I mean, potential junior college for a year to see, and then transfer after that. I would be
Oop, you're breaking up there.
There's going to be a lot of in and out from players that are going to take the extra year, and the players that aren't. There's just so much up in the air. I think you just got to keep contacting coaches and see what you can do.
I didn't think about the community college or the PG year. That's a pretty good idea. Jeff, what do you think?
One, it's just a horrible situation for Aiden and the other kids that are going to be going there to be in. And Chris Hill, the coach there, is, a friend of mine. We were at IJJ together. And there's a couple different options because, one, if he doesn't start school right away, he can, basically keep his year of eligibility and basically go back into the recruiting process. So if he was talking to other coaches other than just St. Edwards, I would certainly circle back and talk to any of those and see if they've closed their doors on 2020. But the other thing that kind of gets us in trouble with that is the seniors coming back and the juniors coming back and all that other stuff. So the first thing I would do is certainly talk to any other coaches that he had been in contact with during the recruiting process and see if they filled their classes. Yeah.
And I think the NCAA did something interesting when they gave seniors an extra year of eligibility. Do you think there was ever any discussion? I mean, we can only speculate, or maybe you guys heard, but do you think there was any discussion on giving high school juniors an extra year of eligibility because they're being pushed back? One, because they can't get into schools, because teams are full. And I know I have some coaches that are saying that they don't have any room. My nephew is looking to play college baseball, and I think team sports like that, seniors are going to stay. I know a lot of golfers aren't going to stay. They want to either move on with their careers, maybe turn professional, or they're going to just kind of get out of golf, college golf, and move on with their lives. Have you guys heard anything about another year for high school seniors?
No. Well, first of all, it's up to the school whether they apply for that waiver. So like the University of Wisconsin has already said, hey, thank you for your service, but our athletes are done with their careers. So they're not going to apply for the waivers for those kids. But like I said, the first class that's really affected by it is the current juniors in high school, because next year's seniors, it doesn't matter because a senior coming back is exempt, not going to count against a team's numbers. Current juniors and sophomores and freshmen in college, when they get an extra year of eligibility, if the coach decides to keep them and give them scholarship, those same years in high school, those are the kids that could be affected because they now count. So it's kind of going to be up to the school and the program. Plus, the universities have to come up with the money to pay for it. Now you've lost basketball revenue. Who knows if you'll have football revenue? And the decision isn't quite so black and white. I think the NCAA jumped the gun making that decision. I know they didn't consult coaches on it or universities on how it was going to happen. They just wanted to hey, let's make these kids feel better. And I think at the end of the day, it might be a lot of to do about nothing. I don't think, like you said in golf, a lot of kids are going to come back. The kids who are going to turn pro may because there's not a Q school next year or whatever it is. But it's up to the university whether they take a kid back or not. The kid can't just decide, I'm coming back.
Right. And Chris, now it's up to the university. Now, what if the university says yes, but the coach says no? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I've actually already heard that. I've heard it being offered and then being taken back. So I don't know the legal rights behind that, but I would say that that's not a good situation. But I also know, to touch base on that other part about some of these seniors that lost their last year due to this, a lot of them are going to take advantage of having that next year because, we don't know about Q school. There's not that many tournaments. There's going to be less open spots for guys trying to get into tournaments. So, I just think there's so much just up in the air. But I've been watching the news and trying to figure out what's going to happen as much as possible.
Yeah, it's kind of day to day almost now, right?
I'd say it's day to day. Yep.
Yeah, you feel terrible for all these kids. But on the flip side, I think there may be some advantage. I know for my son, he's looking at some of the NESCAP schools to play squash, and a lot of these schools are changing, their entry, the admissions regulations and what they need for board scores. A lot of them are going board scores, like ACT, SAT optional. They're lowering the grade requirements a little bit because, like my son Jordan, his grade, he's got like a 3.4 GPA, which is on, borderline for some of the schools he's looking at. And he might, but they may be lowering the things. Have you guys heard about any of that, or have you spoken to any of your players about that stuff?
Well, they've canceled the SAT and ACT testing for the moment. You can't go take an SAT and you can't go take an ACT. Some high schools were giving it inside classes, but it didn't happen before we canceled schools. So a lot of schools have already, the University of California system, the California State system, a bunch of other schools have already canceled the requirement of an SAT or ACT for 2021 admissions, because kids have to apply, in August or September, and they won't have taken a test.
Right.
The NCAA yesterday got rid of the testing requirement for current incoming freshmen to be eligible. Usually you have to have an SAT on record to be freshman eligible, and they got rid of that. And I was looking at the SAT website 2 nights ago. I don't know how they're going to get SATs taken. They're going to look at something online. So it might be that admission requirements for colleges just change greatly based on this, because we're not going to put 200 kids in a room taking an SAT anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, we heard, now Jordan was supposed to take it in April. He got moved to May, and now he's got he's taking the ACT set for June. And that may even be moved. We also heard that they may do some home, proctoring at home. So
right.
People take the test at home and do some proctoring. So definitely, everyone out there, take a look at that. I mean, for him, he's been studying so hard for the ACT. A good ACT score actually could put him over the top for his grade. So I think everyone out there needs to kind of take a look at your own personal situation and evaluate it. Talk with your guidance counselor at school. Talk with your golf coach, and stuff like that. So no questions yet. So let's go to.
Nobody wants to hear from us.
Let's go to another question here. And this is a question that, this time of year up here in the Northeast, a lot of my kids, we're getting ready for typically, if this was a normal year, all the junior golf tournament schedules start coming out. And I think it's a challenge to decide what tournaments to play in. Some kids are exempt, some aren't exempt. There's lots of different tours out there. Chris, you run a tour. There's lots of little satellite tours. Most of the PGA sections have a junior tour. So there's hundreds and hundreds of tournaments out there to play. How do you decide what tournaments to play in and how many to play in? Chris, I'll start with you.
I mean, if it pertains to right now in the current situation, from our perspective, we just want to get kids back to playing. So, more local stuff is great. I mean, people aren't going to travel right away. So in terms of just the current state of where things are at, I just hope kids can start playing again and start building a resume and start getting the experience that they need and get going. In terms of like the schedule though, a typical schedule, we're heating up for summer, which is I would want all my players to be ready to go come June, maybe even in May, as school comes to an end and be, firing on all cylinders. So have a schedule that you have, a throwaway event or two, and then it's right into the prime time season, and then evaluate after that. That's typically the schedule that I go with, and try to get all my players on. So I think with currently though, we would just love to host a tournament. I think every tour out there would love to be able to operate some kind of event. I don't think anything's really going on currently. So as soon as things open up, we'll have some new schedule policies or tournament policies and get the kids out there again.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you think? Let's kind of, obviously this situation, this year's situation is a little bit different, but let's say this
Yeah.
is a normal year. Let's say fast forward to 2021, and you got your players, kind of picking out tournaments.
In a normal year, I think any athlete, regardless of sport, needs an off season. Our thing is that we go from heavy summer season right into our high school season because we play fall high school golf. So, I like to see them have an off season from, November, December, and maybe even January. And as the kids, in that December holiday period, there's always one or two tournaments. That's a big deal for the kids on the recruiting trail. Like we have Arizona Silver Bell and things like that. But we will look at November, December, and January as our off season. Not a ton of competition. There's some rest. There's some retool. February, March, and April, we're playing maybe one or two. In those 3 months, maybe 4 events total, max 5, depending on how things fall on a schedule. We do have AJGA in Arizona, actually at our home course in April, so that's a little bit different number. May is a little bit more of a rest because June and July, we're going to go pretty hard in a lot of heat too, so whether we're traveling or not. And there's a bunch of different ways to go about it. I've always been not less is more, but I like to make sure that kids are prepared for each event because you can go play every day, every week if you really want to. Even during, the school year, you could literally play every weekend if you wanted to. Sydney's a good example. If you look at rankings just from number of tournaments, Sydney has always played less tournaments than anybody else anywhere in the rankings. So, and prior to getting signed to or getting committed to UNLV, she'd only played 3 times outside of Arizona in her life. So there's a bunch of different ways to go about it. I like to see kids spaced, but I also like them to see that, like Chris said, ready for when our big season is, and that's middle of May to the end of July, and then we got to kind of deal with high school season. So I like to see them rested prior to that because it's hot in Arizona. So we got to make sure that we have enough gas in our legs to deal with that.
Yeah, I think controlling how many tournaments a player plays in is important because they're young kids, they're under 17, and the wear and tear on their bodies. Kids don't know when to stop. They'll play. I've got kids. They'll play every day.
Right.
And they love the tournaments and whatever. But like you said, you need a break. So it's difficult. Here's a great question from Bill on the Zoom. He says, how many multi-day events would you recommend during the summer? Chris, why don't you start?
I've seen so many people burn out by playing too many. Obviously, it's summer, it's hot, just like Jeff. Even California, it's pretty hot. So having, maybe one event every week, every 2 weeks. The summer schedule is usually pretty heavy. It's just, how heavy do you go? I've had students that, maybe against my advice had played 6 events in a 15-day period, or a 20-day period. Like that's a little bit much because there is so much opportunity. And you think that you need to play with everybody that's playing and your friends are playing, and you think you need to do that, so you end up doing it. But I think more important is sign up for events that you can prep for well, have enough time to do practice rounds, have enough time to get organized, travel plans. Like it's a big deal. What Jeff was saying, it's great for a kid who can figure out how to travel and play in a golf tournament. I know for me, I started at 15, but I don't think I traveled to an event till I was late into 17, and I wasn't very good at it for a long time. It took me at least a year before I was even good at it, and I think the better you get at that sooner, the better. But I think you have to find a balance what works for you and not feel burnt out. It's a big deal.
Jeff, anything?
I think you have to look at the tournaments that mean most to you. It's like a tour player schedules around the majors and the WGCs and things like that. And so we kind of plot those on our schedule first. Hey, our state junior, hey, a USGA qualifier, things like that. And first of all, they're all going to be multi-day events for them to be ranked unless it's a USGA qualifier. So I like to talk about, what a college schedule looks like when I'm talking to kids and parents, colleges play in spurts. They play two semesters, but they play a lot of tournaments in a 6 or 7 week span in the fall, and then they take a big long break, and then they play a lot of tournaments in a 9 or 10 week span in the spring, and then they take a big long break. So I think if you put the tournaments that matter most to you on your schedule first, and then see what you, like Chris said, making sure you get practice rounds, making sure you get rest, and then what else can you fit in? And if you go need to ahead of want to, I don't think your schedule will be too full.
Yeah.
Or overly full, I should say.
Overly full. Yeah, I think
Advice.
that's great advice. I mean, I had a kid, his senior year in high school, he played 24 days. He played 24 out of 25 days of tournaments. And
then passed out.
He just collapsed. He was trying to, he was a late bloomer, and he was trying to get in. He had schools like Princeton and Yale, and actually ended up Stanford also looked at him. So it worked in his favor because he played well, and the coaches kind of saw his schedule and his scores were there. But he couldn't touch a club for 2 more weeks after that. And it's something that I see a lot, especially up here in the Northeast, because our tournament season is kind of on a shorter scale than you guys. And there's lots of local tournaments to play in, and they want to play in some of these other tournaments. And I'm going to use that as a segue into, do you think you have to go and play a lot of these junior tours to get recognized by college coaches? Or can you just stay local and play some of your local events? Jeff, why don't we start with you?
Well, first of all, the answer is yes, you can stay local and get recognized by college coaches. It depends on, the level of college team that you're targeting. If you're trying to play at a top 25 team, probably not, but if you're capable of playing at a top 25 team, you're going to get into invitationals and AJGAs and things like that. So I've seen it done every way. I mean, I've had girls who never played outside of our local junior golf association and went to University of Tulsa on a 4-year full ride. So every situation is different. And I do a lot of college golf recruiting talks with the local university coaches for the JGA. And they say, hey, if you shoot the scores, we're going to recognize you. So and it depends on what your local association looks like. Are you playing good courses? Are they challenging you? Things like that. But if you're looking to play the top 25 team, probably not. You probably have to travel. You probably have to play at least bigger regional events. The good thing about the AJGA is that pretty much everywhere you go, everywhere you live, you can find an AJGA reasonably close to you. So, short answer, is it possible? Yes. But the higher up the ladder of the rankings that you want to go for a college team, you're probably going to have to go up the ladder of, level of tournament as well. And you might have to travel for that. And then at the same time, those schools like to see you play in different types of situations. Like in Arizona, they always complain that we're playing in the bubble of no wind and no, rain and easy golf courses and things like that. They like to see you play in different situations. So if you want to go play at a Northeast school, you should probably go play a Northeast tournament.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Chris, you want to add into that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can make it any better than what Jeff said. I mean, you hit it right on the head there. You can definitely stay local and still get plenty of exposure to coaches, especially with technology nowadays. Coaches know if you shoot, say if you're a good player and you want to play at a decent school, if you're shooting the 60s and winning, JGA events, they're going to know about it. And you send them your resume, they're going to take a look. And I mean, those are great scores. So, but learning depends on what your goals are. If you want to be a high level player, if you someday want to be on the PGA Tour, if you, a Division I top 25 school, I mean, I think you have to travel and you have to get that experience and play in big events, play against other kids and play in big fields and learn that whole process. But you still can definitely do it locally, especially, having a good coach. Jeff gets it done. There's a lot of coaches that get it done. So if you get it done, I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to add one thing. The one thing that Chris just touched on is don't discount who your golf coach is. not to tout, blow our own horns, but if you have a coach who has access to college coaches across the country, that's going to be a big, thing for you. Whereas, like I said, the girl that went to Tulsa, the Tulsa coach, who's at a different school now, had never seen her play, saw a video that she sent and saw my name on the resume, and we had a relationship. And next thing you know, she's at Tulsa. So, there are a lot of ways to make it happen. So can you make it happen locally if you have the right people on your team and in your corner? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely great advice for the parents out there and the kids. Use your golf coach is a great resource. I mean, I write letters all the time to coaches and develop relationships. I know you guys do the same thing, and they're going to trust us because we're not going to send them somebody we don't think is going to fit into their school or their program, because it's our reputation on the line. So they really, I know every coach I've spoken to really likes, when we do that. I got a question here from Sadie. I believe this is Sadie, who's one of my students, who's a really good young little player. And she said, at what age should a junior golfer start thinking about preparing for college golf? Jeff, you want to start with that?
Once you decide to I like to say that I see too many kids who come into golf with that as their goal. And, there's stages. Hey, I get into golf because I think it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. I start to play more because I enjoyed it. I get better at it. So I start to compete. Once I start to compete and I start to compete favorably, now I should start to think about the next level. That could be at 10. It could be at 15. I don't like to see them do it too early where I play golf because I want to go play college golf. That's going to be burnout. You're going to be disappointed. So, once you start to have good results in competition and you see that, hey, maybe I'm pretty good at this and I'm interested enough to go to the next level, I think regardless of age, that's when that comes into play. I get kids that come in and their parents are talking about college golf and the kids never played in a tournament. And I was like, gosh, you don't join your first year of Little League thinking you're going to go play in the major leagues. Right. So I like to see it. They step up. I like golf. I like to be at the golf course. I like to compete. And I hate to keep using Sydney as the deal, and Evan as well, but they competed late, especially, for the kids of golf with 2 golf pros and who do what I do to the level that I do it. They started late because, we didn't push them. And so now they're not going to be burnt out and things like that. I think college golf being the carrot, if it's too early, man, I see kids going, I'm too late. I'm a freshman and I'm not getting recruited yet. I hate to see that. So Sadie, when you start to have success, and it sounds like, Kevin, she is, then certainly start thinking about college, regardless of age.
Right. Chris?
Yeah, to touch base on that, I'll use my story as an example. It was over 20 years ago now, but I didn't start playing golf until I was 15. I never once thought about college golf. I practiced every day and I was trying to get better. I was trying to beat the kids on my team. I was practicing every day. I wanted to be a professional by the time I was 17. And that was my goal. And then I was committed. I was planning on going to a junior college locally here in San Diego and just working on my game. And I randomly got looked at by San Diego State June 6th of my senior year. And they gave me a scholarship and I went there. It was never part of my plan. And I never thought about it. And I think too many times players are playing hoping to get recognized, hoping to do something to show off in front of a coach, when really you just love the game and you're competitive. And I don't know many people more competitive than I am. Let's go play. Let's go battle. That's, to me, that's the fuel that will get you to the level that you want to get to if that's the case.
Yeah, and here's a situation that I get quite a bit, and I'm sure you guys do. You get somebody who's let's say it's a second semester sophomore, and they were an athlete in another sport, and they've decided they're not going to be able to go play college baseball, let's say, or hockey or something, and they're like, well, let me see if I can play college golf. And they've got very, very little tournament experience. They're obviously good athletes for playing at another sport, but Chris, what do you tell somebody who comes in who's 15 or 16 years old and says, I want to go play D1 college golf?
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic. I think that's still possible. It's obviously a very hard road and a very busy road from 15, 16 to get to that level. So creating a plan and an opportunity. I mean, I think kids could get really good in a year or two. So you just really never know. And I love the process. I want to do it. I want to battle with them. I want to see what we can create. Now, I would hope, and I'll definitely explain that to them, that there has to be a backup plan too. Like D2, D3 is not a bad thing. I've had unbelievable students who I picked up late, even more into their junior year, where they were maybe like an 80 shooter, but by the time, they get into their late senior year, they get picked up by a D3 school, and then they end up having an incredible experience, winning tournaments at the D3 level. And a lot of that, I mean, that's better than a D1 experience. So that could be, just an awesome 4 years of their life that, several stories of situations like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like to battle. I want to go out and do it. So.
Yeah. Jeff?
When a kid comes or parents come and they say that, and I'm like, Chris, great, let's go and let's see how good we can get. But I also, I say, hey, here's the likelihood. Here's how recruiting works. Here's where the kids in the area are and things like that. And I'll say, let's shoot for just get as good as we can get and kind of see how that plays out. When people start talking to me about, hey, I want to play D1, I said, that's a hard road. And there's kids that have been on that road for, 6, 7 years. So let's just kind of not say, hey, I want to play D1. Hey, I want to see as good as I can get as good as I can and see, where that lets us fall. Because when you set such a specific goal like that, sometimes maybe we're setting ourselves up for a little bit of disappointment. I have a lot of kids come in and say, I want to play Division I college golf. And, I had a kid several years ago came in as a late junior and said to me, I want to play Division I. And he was a good player and he was kind of shopping for a new coach. And I said to him, I looked him square in the eye and his dad, I said, you're going to go to junior college golf. I said, that's just where it is right now. You're going to go to junior college golf, but then you have the ability to get better and transfer and go on and on. And he didn't like that. So he went to another coach and, a year and a half later, he's playing junior college golf and his home course was Longbow. And he showed up to Longbow and I was like, hey, how are you? And he was doing exactly what I said he was going to do. And then he got better and he transferred to a 4-year school and had a great career and did well. But it wasn't like I was trying to tell the kid, hey, you're no good. I said, hey, this is the reality of your situation. And I feel like I always want to do that. Hey, here's the reality of your situation right now. It doesn't mean we can't get you better and upgrade that reality. But if they think they're paying me to get them to Division I college golf, that's going to set up issues, down the road. So I say, hey, here's your reality right now. And if we can upgrade that, gosh, let's go do that. But, I've seen too many hearts broken when they get so tied down to Division I.
Yeah, I think that's an important concept or comment you said there. It's, you might not go to the school that your first choice is, but you can always transfer, whether it's a community college or any other just regular, program. And there's a question here from one of the parents. It says, do you think a student is better off playing at a lower level D1 school or a higher level, D2 or D3 college? Jeff, what do you think?
Well, one, I don't think lower level D1 or higher level D2, I don't think it really matters. I like to see kids play. I don't think you get any better sitting on the bench. So I want to see them find a situation that they can go in and contribute and compete for a spot in the starting lineup right away. And there's some high-level D2 teams that are better than low-level D1 teams. When I say high-level, low-level, I just mean within the rankings.
Right.
So a team that's ranked, 150 in D1 can sometimes get stomped by, a number 25 D2 team. So I like kids to find situations that they can compete in. Sometimes we want to go to the highest ranked school we can because we think that's cool. I want to play. Like Chris says, I'm competitive. I want to play. And I would rather go to a school that I can step in and help right now than be a developmental project. So regardless of where that school falls in the D1, D2, D3, NAIA, whatever, I want to go compete right now. I'm not much for riding the pine. So, I'd be looking for a place I can play.
Chris, you want to add to that?
I'll just reiterate that going to a place that you're going to play is, to me, number one. I don't know which level it's going to be at, but when you go into a place that you're going to start and play tournaments, especially for the late bloomer, I'll give an example of a girl that literally came to me a year and a half ago, or February of last year, and her goal as a 90 shooter was to play at USC.
I'm sorry, I didn't know what happened.
Right, but like people don't know, right? People don't know. That's what they think. They have a family that went to USC. She wants to go there. Okay, well, let's get to work. Let's see what happens. Well, she gets injured. She's got a couple of things go on. She barely plays any tournaments, right? But she just got a big scholarship to go to Chapman. She's, her senior year is cut short because of the school thing and all the stuff that's going on. But she is so happy and so excited to go play for Chapman, and it worked out. And I see her every week. She's on the phone with me all the time. In a great situation, and I think she's going to get the experience she wants. She's going to walk on and start playing tournaments, which she really just missed the boat and didn't even get to play the last. I thought she'd have played 20 events in the last year, and she probably played 3 because of the injury and working on the swing and school and now this. So this will be a good thing for her.
Yeah, I've got a story, unfortunately, on the other side where a player that my wife and I worked with who was a good player, borderline great, but really good, and she wanted to go to a couple of high level D1 schools. She ended up going to Florida State and played there, and they had this was she's a 2019 kid, and she had to fight for the 5th spot every single week, and if she didn't have even if she played well, sometimes the coach didn't play her, and it was so stressful for her. She didn't have a great, she didn't have a great experience, and she ended up, quitting the team because she just wasn't having any fun. And it's one of those stories that you don't like to hear. She's doing okay now, but she could have gone to a school like a TCU, and she could have, been right at, definite solid 3 or 4 player or freshman year and played every year. And I'm just going to reiterate what you said is I think it's important to go to a school that you feel comfortable with the program, you like the coach. Just be careful with the coaches because coaches, switch, can leave, but you got to like the program, like the school, and choose programs that way. But definitely, I agree with both of these guys. Go to a place where you're going to play because that's what you're going for. You're not going to try to battle out for the 7th or 8th spot. You want to be in that starting 5 team. So here's another question from Bill. He prefaces it with all kids are different, which we know, but what do you recommend as a standard practice week for a competitive junior? How many hours, course time, and practice stuff? Jeff, why don't we start with you on that one?
I always do the whole adage about dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So if your goal is to go play college golf, you better understand how hard they're going to work. And, they can require you practice 20 to 22 hours a week. And that doesn't include the whole wink, wink, we expect you to be at the driving range and the short game area and all this other stuff. So I think, if you're trying to play high level Division I college golf, I think you should be patterning yourself after what you can reasonably expect when you get there. So if you're practicing a couple hours every day after school, you have a longer day on Saturday, you have certain days where you go to work out. Like he said, every kid is different, but college golf programs are pretty much the same. And they're going that 20, 25, 30 hours a week. And I think if you're not touching close to that, you're going to be very shocked and very surprised when you get to college golf if you do get there. So the closer they can get to 20 hours a week minimum, the better off they are.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm not sure who said it back in our past, but for every minute you're not practicing, somebody else is and getting better than you. I've always kind of lived by that, and I know that I try to share that with my students. And it's not a full-time job, but like when I was in high school, you couldn't get me off a golf course. Like I was there. If it was light out, I was there. And then all of a sudden, late into high school, we had lighted driving ranges. I was there then too. So I've seen kids that all of a sudden got really good because they put the work in. They put the work in that other kids didn't. a lot of kids have tougher school and they have more homework that they have to do and other priorities and family stuff that they do. And that's really awesome. But if you do really want to be a superstar, you definitely need to put the time in. And it's a lot of hours. It's all the time.
One thing I had with one of our college seminars is someone asked that question, and one of the coaches on the panel said, "Hey, do you have to tell your kid to go to the golf course and practice?" And they said, "Yeah." So here's the thing: if you have to ask that question, your kid's not going. I hate to say it that way, but you have to. If you have to ask, you should be like, "When do I have to pull my kid away? When do I have to tell them to stop?" Because if you have to tell them to go to the golf course, they're not going. They're not going to get where they think they want to get. So we shouldn't be, how much do I need to send them? It's like, hey, when do I tell them they need a break?
Yeah. Jeff, I'm going to come back to you in a sec. Chris, going back to the practicing stuff, how would you map out a day for one of your junior golfers who's getting ready for college golf? How much course time, how much range time, short game? Like, how would you break it down?
Yeah, I usually break it down pretty specifically to the player that I'm working with. But I mean, I love a lot of on-course time. If somebody's swing needs work, obviously you need to put more time into that. So there's definitely more of a cycle that players would be on during that time. But a lot of short game. I think chipping and pitching and bunker play and putting. You can't do enough of that stuff. And when I practiced, when I was trying to get good, it was probably 3 hours of short game work and maybe an hour of full swing. So 3 to 1, at least 50%, but then when it comes down to tournaments too, I'll give you a couple of examples of how I do it. But if my players have a tournament on the weekend, I want them to play golf somewhere, even if it's 3 holes or 9 holes on Friday. Love for them to be on the golf course before they play that next round. And then to build out the week prior to that would be, a balance of full swing work and short game work, and then on-course play, and balancing your rounds with competitive practice rounds, and then just on-course play and practice and working on shots. So it really just depends on where they're at with their game.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you do?
Go ahead.
What do you do with what do you do with your kids? Or just take what, because obviously everyone's different, but what kind of range time, course time, how would you map it out?
I think like Chris said, it depends on where we are. Like, hey, are we in a tournament week? If we're in tournament week, it's going to be more course related. It's going to be more short game related. Hopefully, we have it. And that can even change within the week. Like, if the tournament's on a weekend, Monday, Tuesday, we could be, focusing on cleaning some things up with their full swing. Tuesday and Wednesday, Wednesday and Thursday going, focusing on short game, and Friday getting out on the golf course. But the farther away from a tournament we are, the more time off course. The closer to a tournament we are, the more time on course. And then, even off the course stuff, doing stuff specific to the tournament that's coming up. Hey, are we going to play someplace windy? Are we going to a place that needs a different shot around the green, or, has big greens? We're going to need to work on lag putting. So I like to be very specific to, what they have coming up, in competition. It's like, if you're a basketball team, you're preparing for the next opponent. And so we're going to prepare for our next opponent, which is our next tournament golf course. And it needs to be specific. And the farther away from a tournament we are, that can be swing stuff. Closer to the tournament, we got to practice, to play and to perform.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Another question, Chris, we'll start with you. What part of the short game is the least practiced by juniors?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I know when it comes to tournaments, I see that most kids don't practice chipping before they tee off. I don't know if you guys notice that, but I don't see a lot of short game work done on a tournament day, which I think should be done. I don't know. I mean, some kids love pitching and chipping, and they pitch and chip a lot, and they fool around with their wedge and do a bunch of stuff. And then some kids like putting. I think less like putting. So it's probably overlooked. But I think there's so many drills, and so many coaches do encourage so much putting practice that hopefully they are doing it. But I mean, I think taking a good record of your short game is really important, and knowing what part of your short game is actually good and what's not good. Because a lot of kids think their short game's good and it's pretty much terrible. So getting to a point that they know what's good and what's bad is probably even more important than what it is they're working on at the right times.
Yeah. Jeff, what's your answer to that? What do you think?
Lag putting.
Lag putting?
Yeah, kids, kids are bad lag putter. Everybody's bad lag putter. Like, no one goes over the putting green and practices 30 feet. And because they all think they're going to hit it to 10 feet. And I was like, hey, unless you're a bad chipper or the best iron player in the world, 10 feet doesn't really matter. And our goal is from, hit the ball in the middle of the green and be able to two putt from there. It takes a whole lot of pressure off your short game. But lag putting by far, I watch junior tournaments. I watch college tournaments. The only people on the planet that are good lag putters are the pros. So by far, lag putting is the thing that they practice the least, and probably the thing that they should practice the most.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And going back to what Chris said, at tournaments, I'm going to kind of change the question a little bit to least practice by juniors. At tournaments, I'm going to say bunkers. Maybe it's because they don't have access to the bunkers, but it's the one thing that when I caddy for some of my players or I go watch them get ready, they're all, it's full swing, full swing, full swing, hit a few, maybe start out with some putting, full swing, full swing, full swing, a few little chip shots, and then head to the first tee. And I don't think they practice their bunkers enough at all. So that's kind of what I see. That was a very good question. Let's talk about something that everyone's always interested in, that's speed. Nowadays, it's definitely a game about driving, bombing it out there. And I think you guys will agree with me, and I've heard it from several coaches, college coaches, they love kids who hit it far. Hitting it straight is always a little bit easier. So Chris, at what age, or what's a good age to start somebody working on club speed?
I mean, I think again, this all depends on where they're at and where they're at with their game. Obviously, it's nice once they're playing a lot and they're really good, that they start to really work on speed. And I've always tried to swing faster for 10 minutes a day and try to get a little bit faster every day with what I'm doing. But I think from other sports, from kids playing other sports, is where they really get their speed from. Not necessarily for golf. And I'll use an example of a kid that I just took the TPI, 2 months ago before all this, and he's measured at some of the fastest they've ever seen. He's 15 years old, and he is a very high-level tennis player. And he works out and plays tennis and golf pretty much all day. He's been homeschooled for about a year now, so he's got a little bonus there. But I mean, he is so athletic and hits it so hard and so far, like, it's incredible. And that's just not going to happen if you just play golf. It's just not going to happen. So, growing up playing baseball, other sports, there's other ways to get speed done. So, it depends on the age of it.
Right. Jeff?
I completely agree with the other sport being, a way that we generate speed, because the sequencing of throwing a baseball, if you can't throw a ball, kick a ball, run, jump, you're not going to be able to swing a golf ball. And, I see kids all the time that come and, have you played other sports? No. Okay. We're going to have a struggle. But just from inside of golf, we train speed day one. I mean, we have our 6 to 9-year-old class or under 12-year-old class, whatever it is. And part of their warm up, at least a couple times a month, is swinging speed sticks and, getting them to swing, their shoulders falling out. So, plus I think that's fun for them. If they're told, hey, stand there, go slow, hit the ball solid, half of them are going to get bored. So as far as from golf training standpoint, I don't think there's any time where you're not training speed. Stacy and I go do clinics with 75-year-old people and they want to hit it farther. So, train speed every day, you can.
Yeah, I agree. I like, regardless, unless they're really little, my little thing is if they can, if they can swing and maintain some balance, and I know they're not going to hurt themselves, I'm going to get them swinging as, really as fast as they can at a young age. And that's going to kind of lead me into clubs for kids, especially the pre-puberty kids who haven't really developed the muscle strength or anything. Do you guys do club fittings for juniors, and what are some of the things that you're looking for as far as club fitting when it comes to a junior? Chris, why don't you go ahead and start with that?
I mean, I think at that pre-puberty age, the biggest thing is the stiffness of the shaft and the head weight. Obviously, equipment has got so much better from when I mean, US Kids was around even when we started in 04, and I used to teach a lot of kids at that age. But the Tour Series US Kids have always been, I'm a big fan of those based on the head weight and the shaft for somebody in that area. But yeah, they got to be the right length. Kids clubs have to be the right length, otherwise they're struggling.
Yeah.
I also do like, I do like kids that do all of a sudden just start golf with too heavy of a club. There's been a lot of great golf swings in the history of golf that got good swinging a club that was too big for them just getting started. So not for too long, but definitely it's okay.
Let them mess around.
We don't put kids in shoes that don't fit them. They're going to fall down. So I love US Kids. We put them, we recommend that to every student, that comes and says, hey, where do we get golf clubs? I'm always telling them US Kids. The fact that they have the ultralights and the Tour Series, helps a lot. So we can have the kids that aren't as strong. In fact, I just moved a kid. He's always had the graphite shaft ones where they're a little lighter, and now, he's a little stronger and a little taller. And so he moved in his next set into the steel shafts so that they feel a little bit different for him. As long as they can maintain, they can control the club instead of the club controlling them. I'm fine with them being a little bit long or a little bit heavy, but I don't see that often in kids. I used to, when I was younger, always want to swing a bigger, heavier bat than I should. And, coach would yell and scream at me and, you can't do this, you can't do that with that bat. And now I want to go back and say, hey, I apologize. You're right. I should have swung the lighter bat that I could have swung faster. Right. So to the speed standpoint and the balance standpoint, as long as the kid can control the club instead of the other way around, I think we're pretty good.
Yeah. I think the one thing that you guys both didn't say is, don't cut down the parents' clubs and have the kids play with those, right?
Those are that. Yeah, that's I try to encourage away from that. I don't see that too often anymore because it's so easy to get junior clubs. But that used to be you're swinging the stiffest, heaviest part of the shaft when you do that.
Yeah, I do a lot of fittings at Sleepy Hollow, and sometimes you see a bad fitting. These players, they go to these club fitting places who don't know much about teaching, and they put them into these clubs, and an incorrect fitting will change a junior's swing almost immediately, especially when weight's involved. And weight doesn't necessarily have to do with the static weight of the club, but the actual swing weight of the club. If the head's too heavy or the length is too long, you can really destroy a junior's swing in a matter of days unknowingly too, because they're going to adapt to the club. So you got to be really careful with when you get fit and who you get fit with. And I definitely recommend you get your PGA coach involved in the fitting process if you're not doing it with them, so they can kind of make sure things don't change as you're doing it. Let's go. I got another question here for you. So let's talk about, and we got just a few minutes left. So let's talk about the role of the parents in the development of junior golfers. This is something that, it's a question when I talk to a college coach, they talk about the kid and his playing and his development and whatever. And then the last question that I get is what are the parents like? And you guys deal with kids, every day and dealing with parents, and the parents think they know what's best for their kids, and they all mean well. It's not like they're trying to hurt their kids, but a lot of parents just don't know what they don't know and get in the way. So what are some of the pitfalls that you see the parents kind of do that negatively affects a kid's progress or development? And then maybe even talk about a couple of things. Maybe you have an example of something that a parent does that helps. Chris, why don't you go ahead and start with that?
Yeah, I think on the negative side, or the side that they want to try to avoid, is being overly involved, especially if you're a sophomore through senior year in high school, you're basically almost an adult. It's time for you to handle your situation and get, your golf game doing the talking and taking care of this yourself. So if a parent's over involved or trying to steer the situation a certain way, I think that's usually a pretty negative thing. Also, just to comment on that too, definitely don't tell stories to the other coaches, because all the coaches know each other. So if you tell a coach you got offered a full ride to a school, they're going to ask the other coach. So I've seen that happen, several times, and that's just not the way to do it. I mean, just like me and you guys, like, we're all friends in the golf business. There's a lot of people that are very well connected, and coaches all know each other really well. So try to avoid doing that. And then at tournaments, if coach is watching you, you don't really need to be there as a parent. Like, be there to support them, but overreacting and that sort of thing. But on the positive side, I've had so many great parents with their kids, and being helpful, not being too involved, asking questions from me. I think it's great to keep them involved if they're doing their part and truly trying to help. I think over managing the kids and making it where it's not fun. Like, I'm going to make it fun regardless of how competitive they are. We're going to have a good time. Even in my caddy experiences, we're walking down the fairway having a great time. It's not serious. You play golf well when you're relaxed. So just a couple of those thoughts.
Yeah, Jeff.
I think the most important thing that a parent can do is hire the right coach and let them coach. You don't hire, a plumber or whatever and then stand over them and tell them how to fix your house. You do that and let them do that. And, when we first started at Longbow, that first 5 or 6 years, we were just churning out state high school champions and AJJ winners and all this other stuff. And what I would tell you is, I didn't see the parents all that often. Like, they would call and say, hey, does my kid need a new driver? Or, he wants a new driver. Is it okay to buy him? Or what tournament should I sign him up for? But they didn't come to lessons. I was with the kids at tournaments, and these kids were becoming stellar elite golfers. And they went off to college and they performed well. And I think with the proliferation of being able to see golf instruction on the internet, parents have become, experts. And I go to tournaments and I almost want to laugh, because my kids are warming up on the range and I'm sitting back on the back of the tee box, just doing nothing, watching and talking to other people and enjoying being there. And certainly if they say, hey, Dad, I need to look at something. But I see parents who are not coaches coaching and telling their kid, do this, do that. And that parent's shooting 100. And I'm just like, gosh, that's a red flag. And I've seen more kids run out of golf because of that. And there's times where I know I'll be standing in a lesson and I see a kid doing something in their swing that I've asked them specifically, hey, we can't do that. And I know it's because they're getting that directive from their parents. And, we used to have, what we call no parent zone. Hey, don't come to lessons. And there are some kids where I said, hey, it's time, parents, there's the patio, bring your kid, but be a cheerleader. And that's because that's a red flag to college coaches. When you're standing on the range and your kid can't, get themselves to the range, you're carrying clubs, you're showing up at every lesson. And, I have parents who lurk during, lessons. They're kind of around the fringes of the thing. I'm like, gosh, go find something to do. Go hit balls yourself. I've got this. So as a parent, hire the right coach and get out of the way.
Yeah. I think that's, from both you guys, great advice. Hopefully the parents that are on the live right now will take that, and whoever watches it. I think that's just terrific. I've got one last question about the mental game from Danny. It says, how much does the mental game affect a junior at a tournament? Chris?
Well, I mean, the mental game is the biggest part of the game.
Yeah.
So, and it comes down to, it depends on what level you're at, but you need to be confident. You need to own your game. You need to own your situation. You need to own your time. You need to go out and do it. And most coaching sessions that I have are a lot of it's on the mental side and understanding what they're going through and the shots that they're hitting and why, and making decisions, and, you know, being jealous of other kids or being jealous of other situations. Like, there's a lot that goes into the mindset of a player. So that's why I think the biggest thing, and some of the stuff I said earlier, is we want to really build strong people to play golf. It's part of what they do. But if they're fearful out there, if they're worried about stuff, they're never going to perform at the level that they want to play. So it's kind of tapping into what are they fearful of, and how do we start working on that? And get into a place that they can actually go play a golf tournament and feel like they're the best player there. I always do a thing I tell my students: when you shake hands on the first tee, I don't know if we'll be shaking hands for a while on first tees anymore, but, you know, when you look them in the eye and you say to yourself, you know, you guys are going down, you know, this is my shot, let's go play. And if you can't do that, then you don't believe it, and then you know that there's something behind the scenes that you need to work on to get a lot stronger to play. You got to be tough to play this game.
Absolutely. Jeff?
I would 100% rather have a player, you know, of any age, but a competitive player. I'd rather have a player that's a 10 confidence-wise and a 7 technique-wise than the other way around. Now, it can't be a 2 technique and a 10 confidence, because then you're just fooling yourself. But I've seen a lot of players with less than perfect technique go just, you know, kick the heads in of kids who got perfect swings because they don't know how to play. They're not confident in themselves. And I think that goes back to, you know, the thing we're talking about with parents. If in every practice session and every practice round, a parent is telling you what to do, and now you got to go play without that parent or without that coach. I mean, if you're coaching that way, then the kid doesn't have the ability to be confident. But I'd rather say, and, you know, like I said, if you're a 10 confidence-wise and you're a 7 technique-wise, you're going to beat a lot of kids with 10 technique because they're scared of you. And if you walk up there and, like Chris says, you own that situation, you know, you're going to succeed. And it doesn't come from having good technique on the range. It comes from getting in the battle and beating some people you didn't think you could beat, and turning that confidence around, and then feeling bulletproof. And you have to know you're not going to win every time, but if you feel like you can go and beat every player in the tournament on a given day, man, you're probably going to.
Yeah, you have a good chance. I think, you know, how a player handles himself on the course, you know, especially when a college coach is watching, is important, because college coaches know players are going to have bad shots and have bad holes here and there, but how the player reacts, how they rebound. You know, player hits a shot in the water and starts tossing their club around, that's going to be a red flag for a college coach. But a player, you know, hits a shot in the water, you know, obviously is upset, but bounces back from that. You know, that coach, you know, that's going to show the coach a lot. So you know, the kids out there, you got to really be aware of, you know, how you handle yourself, how you hold yourself up when you play. So it's all good. Guys, you know, we're coming down to the, you know, we're over the hour mark here, so I want to respect your time. I really appreciate you hanging out with us for tonight. Great information. Chris, Jeff, I know you guys have, you know, busy days tomorrow. You know, some online stuff. Jeff, you're still open, fortunately. So
We are.
That's nice. But
Must be nice.
Thanks again for your time. Thanks for everyone who is watching. This will be replayed on our Facebook pages, on my YouTube channel. And if you guys have any questions, Jeff, how does somebody get in touch with you?
It's, you know, pretty easy. Our website is FisherBryanGolf.com. My email address is jeff@FisherBryanGolf.com. So, you know, we have Instagram and we have Facebook, so it's pretty easy to find us. And, you know, anybody that has questions about the junior golf landscape, or, you know, college recruiting or things like that, feel free to reach out, and I'll do my best to help you out.
Yeah, I know. And Jeff did a cool little 4-part series about college recruiting. I think it was last week or the week before, that everyone should go take a look at. That was really good, Jeff. Chris,
Yeah, it was really good.
how does everyone get in touch with you, Chris?
Yeah, always happy to help. FutureChampionsGolf.com. I also have Instagram, and my email is chrissmeal@gmail.com. So any questions, please hit me up. Happy to help.
So I would take it, guys. These are great resources, everyone out there. You know, Jeff and Chris, you know, lots of experience with junior golf and golf tournaments. So definitely take advantage of their knowledge. Thanks again, guys. Have a great night, and we'll speak to everyone soon.
Thanks, Kev.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yep,
Thanks,
thanks,
Jeff.
bye.